What's going on, guys? Been a while. I just been busy with life. I know one of the last things I mentioned was trying to get my house sold, so I need to move everything out. Work has been crazy and everything like that. I haven't bought any new knives. I'm still enjoying and mostly carrying my K390 Endura. It still cuts. I just broke down a box of, I have Pet Flow. I think that's what it's called, Pet Flow. And that's how my dog's food gets delivered pretty much every month and a half or so. And I just broke down a box. I haven't sharpened it. I don't even think I've stropped it. It cut the cardboard just fine. Really impressed with that steel. I've grown to love the Endura because of the steel. But anyway, it's been a while. I usually talk a little bit about sharpening and stuff like that more so. I've kind of switched over a lot to talking about sharpening, use and observation during use, and then repeating the sharpening and observing while you're sharpening, and just kind of getting a feel for the steel you're working with, etc. So I also know that I have not done an update on my Venev diamond bonded stones, CBN bonded stones, and I happen to need to sharpen my GSO 3.5 from Survive Knives in 3V. This is, I think you can see it there, 3V steel right there. 3V steel treated by Peters, and it has been sharpened previously. You can kind of tell it's not a perfect edge, so you can see there's a little difference on each side. It's not super dull, but it could stand some sharpening. I'm going to kind of sharpen the knife and kind of walk you through the stones so you can kind of get a little bit of a feel for my experience with these stones. Now, these are the Dragon series Venev bonded stones. This is 100 grit on this side, 240 on the other side, 100%. And this is the newer bonder, whatever you want to call it, the newer resin. You want to just splash it with some water. They're not soaking stones, they just need a little bit of water. I usually let the water sit on here for a little bit because I have noticed the stones do absorb just a little bit of water. Nothing crazy like that, but they do absorb a little bit of water. I'm just gonna grab a paper towel real quick. They do absorb a little bit of water, but nothing crazy. I'm just gonna sit down here and sit the knife down here and start to get this edge set. What I have noticed about these stones, meaning the 100 grit specifically, the 100 grit does not feel as aggressive as you would probably think a 100 grit stone would be. And it's fine, it does its job, but as far as 100 grit stones go, you're not gonna start sharpening on this and be like, oh my goodness, this thing is just eating away steel. So I do tend to use a little bit more pressure, which, is a good thing and a bad thing depending on, can be a good thing or a bad thing depending on your experience and how you know to sharpen and hold your angles edge. But I don't mind if my stuff is a little bit off. So if things get a little bit screwy, I'm cool with it. So I am just working kind of on each portion of the edge. I don't notice that there's as much load up on these stones, on the lower grit stones. Okay, and I sharpen with the same hand, by the way. But I don't notice that there's as much load up on these stones. There is more load up than like a diamond stone or something like that, but there's not as much as on the finer grit stones. So You can kind of see some of that steel coming off now. I think you can, hopefully you can. Okay, feels like we got a little bit of a burr. I'm just gonna try to flip that burr back over. Move that out my way. Oops, and I don't want to do that too often. I don't want to run off the edge of the stone. I'm going to use a few light passes. And that's just to reduce this burr. Okay, I'm going to flip it over and you can kind of see what I was talking about. You can see on the edge here it's darker. Even when you kind of wipe that water off, it kind of soaks up that water a little bit. And you can kind of see even there the difference between the line where I rubbed that water and it kind of soaked in versus now where I'm putting water on here. So it does soak up a little bit of water, nothing crazy, but just again for informational purposes. So I'm gonna try to start on this edge, and this is 240 grit, by the way. Making sure to lift that handle up as I approach the tip. And by that I mean if the knife is laying down and I'm exaggerating, I'm lifting that handle up, lifting it up like this when I get close to that tip. And that is just to keep that angle the best I can. And I'm also going to rotate the stone this time. I usually rotate when I'm not recording, but recording, if you know anything about YouTube, it's a little bit different when you're recording and trying to do something versus just doing it. But I'm going to rotate the stone so that way I'm using both sides equally. And I'll kind of show you when I use my Nagura stone that I've noticed these stones to be very wear resistant, meaning they don't dish a lot. And you can kind of see what I'm saying, even just jumping from that 100 grit to the to this 240, you can see the load up happening a little more, but the stone is still cutting just fine. I'm using just hand pressure here, nothing crazy. Absolutely nothing crazy. Right. And you can tell I'm much faster with this hand. Much faster on this side, I guess I should say. All right. Make a few more light passes. All right. Just a few even lighter passes. just to try to refine that apex, kind of knock that burr off as much as possible. Wipe this off. All right, you guys can kind of see what I've done with the edge here. Hopefully you can. You can see it's still somewhat bright, a bright finish even at these lower grits. I'll show you, sorry about bumping the camera. I'll show you how I clean these stones. This is the 240 grit side. You can see there's a little more load up, or at least I think you can. But I'm just gonna rub this on here. I've never flattened this stone or done anything to this stone, to either one of these stones. But you'll see, oops, this Nagura stone, and this is just a cheap $8 Nagura stone off of Amazon. It knocks all of that slur that's built up right off of there. And you can, I think you can hear that suction. It's still so flat that it almost wants to suction this Nagura stone to the actual sharpening stone. And you can kind of see there how clean it is. I'll flip it on this side, and you can see there's just the slightest buildup right about here. I'm not gonna worry about getting this flat on here. Again, about 10 seconds, rinse it off. I just have a little cup of water sitting over here with that Nagura stone, and it's clean, just that fast. So you can see how flat it was. I didn't do the flatness thing on that side, but trust me, it's pretty flat. So we're gonna get locked in here. This is 400 grit. Again, just splashing some water on here pretty quickly. We'll get started on this side, and what you will see here is the stone does load up a little bit faster, but again, it cuts well. I don't experience any slowdown in the cutting, at least not during a sharpening. Now, maybe if I just let the stone load up for a while, but I'm very happy with the performance of the stone so far. So, again, just finger pressure, hand pressure, nothing crazy. Trying to make sure I don't focus just on one part of the stone, kind of use that the entire stone. I do tend to prefer larger stones, just because that's just how I am. No other reason than that. Smaller stones do have their benefits, but I like the larger, more 3x8-ish style stones. So that's that side. Let's flip this, and again, I'm gonna rotate the stone so that way I'm not just wearing out one side. I'm gonna push that out of the way, and just finger pressure, finger pressure. And you can see that buildup happening. But again, it's still cutting. No need to worry about it while you're sharpening a single knife. I would say even 2 or 3 knives. I don't think you would have any problem. I've never sharpened that many back to back without cleaning the stone, but you see it only takes a few seconds to clean, so there's really no reason not to clean the stone. All right, let's give it a few light passes. It feels like we've got a burr. And I am just using the slightest amount of pressure. I just want to try to break that burr off as much as I possibly can. So this is the let's see, that's 400 grit. There you go. You can kind of see that's what 400 grit looks like. That's a 400 grit finish. So again, these stones do give you a little bit of a brighter finish than you're probably used to for most stones at this grit rating, but that's just how they are. And even though they give you a little bit of a brighter finish, because you're cutting with diamonds, you still get some of that tooth of a diamond stone. So there's no loss there. This side here is 800 grit. And the higher you go, the stones just feel smoother and creamier, which is kind of what I like. I don't really like that raw, rough diamond feel and sound. And that's just a personal thing. I know it doesn't really matter, but that's if you're watching this and you care anything about what I think, that's part of the reason why I went with these stones. I really don't like that just like sound and feel on just exposed diamond, but that's me. And I'm going to rotate this around one last time. Lift that handle up, again, working on this tip. And I'm trying to kind of spread the wear out. Not mandatory, but I like to do as much as I can to minimize the wear. Whatever burr was left on here should be pretty much cleaned up if I've done my job. And that's also part of the reason why, like I said, we talk about sharpening, use, observation, and then sharpening while you observe. You'll find if you can make a huge burr on a knife, that's a sign of retained austenite, which is not a good thing. And if you can almost never remove the burr, that's also not a good sign. Now, removing a burr off of diamond stones is not necessarily the easiest thing, but it also shouldn't necessarily be impossible. So that's that. Now, I've got this strop here with 1 micron CBN spray by Ken Schwartz. I'm going to strop this up a little bit, and then we'll kind of see what we have. This is just a smooth leather strop. No clue where I got it from. I've had this strop probably for 10, 15 years, honestly. It was naked until maybe, I don't know, maybe about 2 years ago. And since then I've been using like the Ken Schwartz. And again, I'm not really using a lot of pressure. I know that's another debate. Do you use a lot of pressure? Don't you use a lot of pressure? That kind of thing. I think that's up to you. That's really kind of up to you. So that's all I'll say about that. All right, I'm gonna wipe this off and we'll see kind of where we're at. So you can see we're pretty doggone sharp. So I think we did a good job. That's just about 20 minutes and sharpening, talking, the whole 9 yards. So as you can see here, I'll show you kind of the finished product. You can see it's very bright now. But that's that, guys. I appreciate you all watching. Remember, a lazy man carries a dull knife. GSO 3.5 and 3V by Peters.